Star Wars, one of the most popular and well-known franchises of all time. Some say that the franchise dipped in quality when the prequels came along, some say it started when the newer trilogy came fucking along, and some people say it was never good in the first place. And to be honest, I've never been interested in Star Wars. Never have been, and I probably never will be. Every time I tried to get into them, but I never could. So when I heard that there was a new Obi-Wan Kenobi show coming out, I binged through all of the movies just so I could understand the show. And yeah, this show is awful. This shit is even worse than the prequels, and that's saying something. This is some of the worst shit I've seen from Star Wars, although I haven't seen the Book of Boba Fett, so that might be worse. So how this is going to work is that I'm going to go through and analyze all 6 episodes of Obi-Wan, and at the end I'll give the episode an arbitrary rating out of 10. So without further ado, let's start off with episode 1, or part 1 if you're the type of person who loves to correct someone on which model of eraser is correct. It's like calling each episode of your TV show chapters. Anyway, I think my main problem with this series is the premise. It has potential, but it is so poorly executed that it would make Twilight blush. Our first scene is where we get introduced to the Inquisitors in their cheap fucking plastic looking armor, where they attempt to capture a Jedi in hiding. The Grand Inquisitor, played by Rupert Friend, does make an excellent speech, and when I was watching this I thought to myself, maybe this show won't be as shitty as everyone says. Maybe it might be pretty good. But no, this show is fucking awful, everything is wrong with it. So once the Jedi is discovered, he runs away and collapses one of the poles. No, not all of them, just one. So we have a Jedi slowly running away, and the Inquisitors make little attempt to stop him. Instead of going around the collapsed structure, they instead decide to go through it, slowly. Why did they decide to do this? Well, horrible writing, that's why. We also get introduced to a character named Reva, a character played by Moses Ingram, and in my opinion she isn't a very good actor. I'm sure she's a nice person, but she just can't act to save her life. I didn't really like her in The Queen's Gambit, and she is especially bad here. I'll try not to touch on her too much throughout the show, because her character isn't as bad as people make her out to be. She's completely useless, and the whole show doesn't need to exist, but she's not Wendy Bird levels of annoying, nor is she Amber from Invincible levels of annoying. She's just meh. She is brash and vengeful, but not intimidating in the slightest. She comes across as whiny. These are not good qualities for your supposed intimidating villain to have. Also, how has she been this impatient for 10 fucking years? You'd think she would have lost her mind years ago from all her impatience, but no, she's still quite impatient. And no one really cares too much at first. Another issue with the time jumps is that if you tell us anything, the audience will automatically apply logic to whatever you're trying to tell the audience. Since it has been 10 fucking years, you would think that there would be no low-hanging fruit Jedi remaining. However, it appears that there are still a lot of them out there, which is absurd unless the Sith suddenly developed competence since the start of the program, since the show is based on the prequels and everything. I should also add that I'll be adhering to the rules of continuity that this movie follows. I will not be looking at the comics or any other third-party media at all. If it's from the prequels, then I will compare it to that. Since this movie is from the prequels, it takes place after the prequels, I would say, then I'm going to compare some logic and some of the stuff from the original trilogy to it. And a well-trained Jedi being slammed by 2 guys brandishing blasters is arguably the laziest piece of writing I've read in a while. Never in the history of Star Wars have I witnessed a Jedi die so quickly. They are rusty for sure, but they're not rusty to the point where they don't know how to bloody fight. Additionally, the narrative of this program involves a hero saving a child while eluding assailants who wish to murder him. I would say I'm amazed by their laziness, but I've seen lazier plotlines this year. Talk about low-hanging fruit as a narrative. Now, I know earlier I briefly mentioned how incompetent the villains are in the show, but I will find myself coming back to this point regularly, because of how stupid the villains are. And because of their blatant ineptitude, Obi-Wan's victory against them doesn't feel very triumphant. However, the Leia chase scenes expose their actual incompetence. I wasn't aware of how frequently criticized this scene was since. Let's face it, people aren't really good at identifying flaws in movies, so I was shocked to see that several people shared my opinion that the pursuit sequence was beyond stupid. Leia is being pursued by 3 grown men. At this point, she may as well have been traveling at the speed of a sloth, considering how quickly they can catch up to her. However, they are unable to. And because the males are only moving at a slow jog, you can see them holding back when they're sprinting. No, that isn't even the stupidest part. One of the guys trips over after colliding with a branch as he chases after Leia. Where was this branch exactly? Was it at foot level? No, it was above his chest, and it didn't appear out of nowhere. In fact, he could have easily seen the branch coming from a mile away. However, due to poor writing, he is knocked on the ground and Leia manages to flee. Not only that, but once Leia slips out of one of the men's grasp by ducking underneath a branch, the guy turns around and pursues her in a different direction, even though he could have simply passed through or leapt over the branch. I swear I keep being surprised by awful writing this year, and I find it hard to imagine that a strong guy with a house guard, influence in politics, and wealth has no other alternatives except a failed Jedi who's been retired for like 10 years now. We are brushed aside with this remark that they don't want it to become public, but let's do some Blue's Clues over here and think for a moment. That you could actually need some on the planet to handle delicate problems since you're wealthy and powerful. All things considered, they ought to be far more significant and potent than the US president, who represents the entire world. It is not plausible. Obi-Wan must also have a remarkable memory, since he went to the middle of the desert and dug a hole exactly where he had buried his lightsaber 10 years ago. Not even a single tracking device was used by him to find this lightsaber. What makes Obi-Wan aware of this location? Another major issue for me, I suppose, at how hard they work to make you believe that this is Star Wars by using all these technical terms. I understand, man. I'm watching a Star Wars show. You don't need to persuade me otherwise. They seem too self-conscious to let you forget that this is Star Wars, without reminding you every 2 seconds. Several things now. One would have to create hundreds of kidnapping plots for a Reaver to decide who Kenobi would come to help based on who he fought along many people. It's super contrived that she picks out Bail Organa. Secondly, Obi-Wan was a commander in the military. He probably has a rudimentary understanding of risk assessment, even though he might be a bit rusty on that, but I doubt many war veterans forget how war works. He has to be protected since he may have 2 chosen ones. No, not 1. 2, Luke and Leia. I'm pretty sure it's Luke or whatever. He is only able to be in one place all at once. Not only does he run the chance of being unable to defend Luke from an attack by a Tusken, but he also has no assurance that he would be able to locate and release Leia by leaving Tatooine. For some reason though, this seasoned strategist decides to not protect Luke, whose safety is guaranteed, in order to put both Leia and Luke's lives in danger. Naturally, Obi-Wan displays his lightsaber in front of everyone at the end, out in public. The fanservice Inquisitors are both not at all like their established characters in their performances. And then there's this really forced scene of a short Order 66 scene, which isn't very impactful. The other Jedi escaping and reaching Obi-Wan without anyone tracking them down is an extremely contrived way to get that identity conflict shown. I guess I should talk about Leia now, and talk about how much of an annoying little cunt she is. I think my main problem with her character is, why does she have the same personality as she does when she's an adult? It's just weird. Like, does everybody just stay static and never change or grow? Also, what's really annoying is how the writers always write kids like adults. Some of those lines were kinda bad, but coming from an adult would sound fine. But coming from a kid just sounds so awkward. What kid talks like adults, except for Bruce Wayne maybe? I guess this one fucking does. One last thing about this episode before I move on though. I don't like it that this third sister takes the woman's hand off and she isn't screaming. They have to soften the violence, maybe to make it family friendly, for a wider appeal and more views. But when the guy is hanging, he's not hung. It's not even clear if he's dead, except everyone is sad. The sadness of loss is quickly glossed over though, so don't worry. Also, never mind, she's not screaming. She just fucking disappeared from the whole scene entirely in the next scene. So, where the fuck did she go? I guess she got bored of her hand getting cut off, so she teleported? I guess the one good thing I'll say about this episode is that the backgrounds and cinematography look good, I suppose. So overall, I'm going to give this episode a 2 out of 10, I think. It might change later. Another thing that I forgot to mention is that this episode relies so heavily on fan service that it is insane. At first, it's kinda cute, but then they keep fucking bashing you over the head with it. Like, Jesus, it starts to feel obnoxious after a while. Moving on to part 2, and I'm just going to warn you now that I have a lot more complaints about this part than the first, and same go for future episodes, you get it. The first thing I want to touch on this episode is how Leia manages to escape. Now in part 1, when the forest chase scene with Leia happened, I thought, wow, this is really fucking stupid, but what are the chances they'd do it again in the next episode? Surely they wouldn't do it again in the next episode. I mean, only a madman would do. Oh god damn it. Now, as if the first chase scene wasn't ridiculous enough already, the chase scenes with Leia feel like they're watching grown men playing tag with a toddler. So the adults act like they fucking suck donkey nuts, just so that the kid can win. Like, for God's sakes, you guys, she's a bloody 10-year-old. It's not fucking Usain Bolt. But not only can Leia outrun fully grown adults, she can now outrun a Jedi. There's way too much retconning and plot armor this episode as well. First, I had zero clue how Kenobi got from point A to B in this episode. Random street girls just give him free spice. Then a random kid leads him to a Jedi, who leads him to the kidnapper's hideout. The girl's spice saves him. Then he happens to run into Leia. How fucking convenient. Then there was this terrible rooftop sequence where the bounty hunters who had Kenobi triangulated exactly to the exact dot where he was on couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. They start shooting him and then inexplicably stop shooting him once he needs to use the Force to save Leia. You can see the more I'm describing this, the less it's making sense. The thing is that usually I'm pretty harsh on media, and I completely understand the people who want to defend it, like Marvel fans for example, but I have no clue how anyone could defend this. It genuinely shocks me that there are people out there that think this is a masterpiece of television. Now, you guys remember in my original sentence where I said retconning. Well, this is the part where I give you an example of that. Leia shouldn't even know Kenobi. In A New Hope, she said that years ago you served my father in the Clone Wars, and not years ago you saved me from a fucking kidnapping. Then at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Kenobi knew that Anakin had turned to the dark side and was Vader, so why was Reva revealing Anakin to being alive a surprise? Also, even if he didn't know, after 10 years he couldn't put two and two together and realize that this infamous Sith, Lord Vader, who's wearing an oxygenated mask and armor to hide that he was badly burned and the Emperor's apprentice. Who else could it be? Fucking Joe from the downtown street of Manhattan? Wow, Obi-Wan, I didn't realize you were that dead in the head. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is that the writers can't even keep their story straight within consecutive episodes. In this second episode, Reva actually reads the con man's mind to find out where Kenobi and Leia are. So in the pilot, why didn't she use this power on Tatooine instead of all this constant yelling, death threats, and hand cutting? Why didn't the three Inquisitors just read everyone's mind in the bar? Hell, why can't these former Jedi actually sense the presence of another Jedi? Kenobi was right around the corner from Reva on Tatooine when she was trying to squeeze Owen for information. She couldn't sense them then, like she sensed them in episode 2. We then have the biggest crime of all, which is Reva killing the Grand Inquisitor. Spoiler alert, he's still alive in future, and the writers know that, so they bring him back? It was still a weird move to try and trick people that he was dead, to make these idiots look more like hypocrites. Here's an article by Jobby Harold trying to explain the issue. As you know, we would never break canon, so that's all I'll say. Canon is everything. Right. Huh. So, Leia meeting Obi-Wan in past and never bringing it up in future is not breaking canon, right? Neither is the Grand Inquisitor that you totally wanted to shock the audience just to bring him back, and that he could totally survive by getting fucking sponged with a lightsaber. That wasn't breaking canon, right, or anything. Definitely not. It just makes you guys look like you wanted to kill him, and then a few days later you were like, oh fuck, this isn't canon. So you decide to stick with it, and you're like, oh fuck it, we'll change it later. Also, why is Obi-Wan walking around without a hood? Oh right, that one guy in the alleyway can recognize him, and why does the Inquisitor leave Reva unguarded? When she's so out of line, she kidnapped an Imperial Senator's daughter, and further knows that she has the chance to walk out without punishment, so she can face off against Vader without bothering the writers with having to put actual effort into the writing. Also, why does Leia instantly guess her kidnapper's plan after seeing Obi-Wan's bounty? That's a weird leap in logic, especially when the easiest explanation is that maybe he's a kidnapper too? What I found really goofy is Kenobi could be anywhere in the town. Reva, town genius, decides to get on a rooftop and just sits there like an idiot, doing nothing until lucky Leia decides to stupidly run off and climb onto a rooftop that somehow a Jedi Master couldn't catch her before all this. What is she, Batman? And Obi-Wan is randomly given this random ass drug. I get drug dealers often give out 3 samples, but it's literally an essential item for them to, save Leia. But that's not as bad as this. Get ready for a contrivance orgy. Obi-Wan has 2 blasters pointed at his head, but he still reaches into his pocket. Now, I don't know if anyone of you know this about people who have guns pointed at your head, but they don't exactly take kindly to anyone that is slightly suspicious, even if they move a fucking inch. He then has the time to show the bottle. Not only that, but he has time to say a punchline, throws it on the floor, and instantly stuns everyone. We then see Leia not trusting Obi-Wan, which is fine. Talk to her. How about you talk about how you met her father? Reassure her. You can also force lift a tiny rock. Whatever the hell you want to do to convince her. If you can't do it, turn on your lightsaber. You could have also shown her the stunned bodies of the dead kidnappers. Well, not dead, alive. But no, he just says, trust me. And then she runs off. This trust issue plotline is the biggest problem because the rest of the episode shouldn't exist. Look carefully when Obi-Wan's fighting the bounty hunters on the roof. He kills the one guy and the other remains. As soon as Leia jumps off the roof, the bounty hunter simply disappears. There's no way to explain this. This is a continuity error. What's ironic is that he appears again on the next scene to be killed by Jedi, quote-unquote, Haja. Speaking of Haja, he basically gives them the key to escape this planet, risking his own life without knowing anyone he's helping. How convenient. Even more convenient, he stays too. According to him, he wants to make a diversion. Why though? They haven't been spotted yet. He's doing that so Reva can find him, read his minds, and then track Obi-Wan. Otherwise, they could have just went for the ship together. But then, there would be no plot, because the writers are bumfuck lazy. Also, how is Reva not fucking dead? Any stormtrooper and or Sith who disobeys one rule, they get fucking king hit instantly. But when Reva does something that is more than slightly inconvenient to the Sith, they don't bother killing her. What's the point? And it's not like she needs to be in the story. She has never once been mentioned in the movies or any other future Star Wars media that I've read or watched. You could literally cut her out and the series wouldn't change, except for there being no plot device. Oh, and by the way, I mentioned this before, but the entire planet is looking for Kenobi. For some reason, he doesn't disguise himself with a mask or a helmet. Every other person they run into wears one. Then Leia gets kidnapped or whatever, so then basically they put her in an unguarded back room when they're expecting one of the most powerful Jedi of all time. Then he shows up and he's basically just some guy who can't do anything. So what, 10 years make you forget about being a Jedi, but another 15 years later, Obi-Wan can face off Darth Vader? Remember guys, Don't judge it, they want to make it respectful to the canon. Overall, this episode was even worse than the first one, somehow, and it was 100 times more darker than the first episode. And no, not darker in terms of, holy shit, that was fucking dark. No, darks in terms of, I can't see fucking shit. So I'm going to give this episode an unregrettable 1.5 out of 10. Moving on to episode 3, and holy shit, we already have so many fucking problems. Firstly, let's talk about this fire bullshit. There is a 3-foot wall of fire that prevents Vader from using the Force. I hope they somehow explain why he let them go, otherwise this was more stupid than what we saw in Star Wars Episodes 7 and 9. Oh, they didn't? Even though they just showed him using the Force through fire earlier? Oh. Okay. The thing is that there is no tension in this show. We know Obi-Wan will make it through. We know Princess Leia will make it out. We know Darth Vader will live. We know that the Grand Inquisitor will live. And we don't know whether Reva will live or not. But she's just so poorly written as a character, like everyone else in the show, that you just don't care about her. Let's compare it to Better Call Saul, and apparently whenever I do this, I always see people crying in the comments, talking about how I'm comparing both shows, which is unfair, which is true and false. I'm comparing one aspect of one show to another. What else am I supposed to compare it to? Am I supposed to compare it to a worse piece of media? Because that wouldn't make much sense. Anyway, in Better Call Saul, everyone is practically a new character, except for Mike and Saul, of course. That's it. We don't know whether the rest of the characters die or not. It's not like there's only 1 or 2 new characters, there's fucking 5 of them. So each season you get more invested in their stories and their characters, and when there are tense scenes with the characters, you're genuinely terrified for them, because you don't know whether they could possibly get out of this one alive. Of course, there are some exceptions to this rule in Better Call Saul, like the Bagman episode and whatnot, but you get the point. Creating tension and stakes is from not knowing. Not knowing whether the characters will live or die. It takes a lot of talented writers to make you feel tension for a character who you know will live until later, or might even not die. The lighting looks so flat and ugly in every single episode, not to mention how poorly the music is introduced into every episode. Every time they introduce music, it just feels awfully inappropriate for the situation. Also, I found another continuity error, because I really have no life, and I really do look for consistencies 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, not even joking. Anyway, when Darth Vader meets Obi-Wan in A New Hope, he says something to the effect of, "Last time we met, you were the master and I the apprentice. Now the roles have been switched." But how can this line hold knowing that the encounter in this episode has occurred? Looks like it's canon that Obi-Wan didn't happen. The show, not the character. He's still there. Can I fucking stop watching the show now? When Obi-Wan gets to the meetup spot, I shit you not, he waits like 10 seconds and fucks off. What an impatient little shit. Aren't you a Jedi or something, you fucking mimsy? By the way, why wouldn't Vader just walk through the fire to catch Obi-Wan? He lives on a volcanic planet, not a snow biome. Also, how the fuck did the third sister teleport in front of Leia when in the tunnels? There was no shortcut, so how the fuck did you manage to catch up to her? Another problem is that somehow the transporter that isn't pursued or intercepted has it jump to light speed first thing upon landing. Have the lifter droid question its manifest and make it clear that it shouldn't be there. You would think that Obi-Wan would be a bit more well known as well, especially since he's been in hiding for 10 years, and word would have gone around fast. But he's with these stormtroopers and they really don't pay too much attention to them. Man sure is lucky that these stormtroopers are shit at their jobs, or they would have been dead right now. But then later turns into fucking Bruce Lee and 4v1s them. Except when 2 people with guns show up, he's outmatched. Obi-Wan, the same fucking thing happened to you last episode. Were those people just really fucking gullible or something? I should try this shit when I get robbed for the first time, from gunpoint. I'll just say, hey, it says gullible up on the ceiling, and once they look, I'll just take their fucking guns, because apparently it's that easy. Also, I know I keep going back to Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader's grand fight or whatever the fuck, but how does Tala know where they are going? Lucky she was there to light a fire, and Darth Vader just walks away. Well, that's a bit anticlimactic. Also, I love how they try to make Darth Vader intimidating by him just killing random people. Hey writers, you don't need to make him terrifying. The previous movies have already kinda done that. Even if they haven't, you're so shit at writing anyway, so give up. That was a bit mean, sorry, but it's kind of true. Like, Darth Vader is ruthless, but he isn't mindlessly ruthless. He's only ruthless when he needs to be, which is usually toward the Jedi. How can someone have this poor of an understanding towards Darth fucking Vader, one of the most iconic characters of all time? And why didn't Obi-Wan stay in shape when he knew his only job was to protect Luke from the Empire and prepare him for training when he grew up? Then following that bad decision is Tala leaving Leia just because Leia somehow sensed Obi-Wan was in trouble. You don't leave a little girl to fend for herself like that, no matter how sassy and pretentious she might be. Then Reva magically picks the right building where they might be hiding, and she finds an escape route, which leads to further questions. How did Tala not run into Reva when she doubled back through the tunnel to go and save Kenobi? How did Tala find Kenobi? And to add to this, why did the robot know to leave the building and save Kenobi? So many questions, and yet the writers are too coked up to answer any of them. Also, you gotta just love the convenient timing for when the double agent shows up. I mean, that is just impeccable, really it is. And I'm pretty sure that's all the thoughts I have on this episode. The lighting was pretty dark as fuck, so I couldn't see shit. Choreography has been bad in every episode, where it feels like a fan-made film. In fact, most of the fan-made films have been better than this. However, this isn't the worst episode in the series. Compared to the first and second episode, there is just not nearly as many contrivances in this episode than there are in the previous two. But don't get hopeful, since it's all downhill from here. So yeah, 3 out of 10, moving on to episode 4. And this might be the worst one out of the bunch. It's definitely the worst so far. And just when I thought I was the only one who thought that, I looked on IMDb, and then I saw that this was the worst received episode. And that made me a bit happy. I don't know why. Maybe I'm a psychopath. This episode was completely unnecessary, whereas in the previous episode some stuff was necessary. In this episode, nothing is necessary. But for this episode, how did Tala, Robot, and Kenobi escape? The mining planet when Reva killed the pilot, and their only means of escape. Did Reva just leave the escape ship there? Why didn't she destroy it? Or better yet, why didn't she put a tracking device on that ship, like she comically does in the previous episode, I think? I'm talking like this is Reva's fault, but no, the actor is just doing her job. Oh, George Lucas wrote this episode, and so did Jobby Harold. No wonder this episode was so dogshit. Why did the Path Network leader just immediately fold after talking about his wife? Before that, he was dead set against helping Kenobi save Leia. What changed in those 5 seconds that Kenobi said the Empire was bad? Also, how does the Path Network guy have all the schematics to the Inquisitor's base? I request elaboration. From this episode, it appears that this was Tala's first time on the base. So how did they get this information? Also, since you know where it is, why didn't you do a stealth attack? You know, where their base is, but they didn't know where yours was, and somehow you know they don't have shields protecting the base, which is exactly why you would actually plan and execute a sneak attack on them, or a fucking ambush, which mean the same thing. Destroy their base, get rid of the fucking Inquisitors, weaken Vader. Well, you can kill Vader, but that wouldn't work for canon now, would it? But the Kenobi writers don't seem to care that much about canon, so I think they could get away with it. Simple. Kenobi is not remotely healed from his burns, and yet he seems okay the whole episode on the base. He's not wincing in pain, checking his burns. He actually swam underwater and was in open spaces around other people. And from what I know, which I don't know much, let's be honest, burn victims are very susceptible to infections unless they are confined. Whatever, this is a bad show. I shouldn't expect less. A problem with this episode was Tala's part, not due to the acting, because Indra Varma is one of the few actors doing acting, maybe even the only one at this point. The problem was in the writing. Tala was incredibly suspicious on the base, and none of the Imperial officers realized this. First, she actually mentioned that she would report that the security officer for this disrespect is to the Grand Inquisitor, but isn't the Grand Inquisitor dead at this point in time? This should have raised a red flag immediately, and it kind of did, but they weren't like, oh, he's dead. No, they were just kind of like, oh, fuck, I'm scared of that guy, I'm not gonna ask any more questions. And the new Grand Inquisitor hasn't been decided yet, as Reva and the fifth brother are competing for that position. Then, when Tala is in the control center, she's talking to Kenobi on her portable comm. The officer next to her sees this, yet chooses to ignore it. Also, they should be suspicious as fuck as to why she's talking in a whisper and not out loud. Why the fucking need to whisper if you're above board? Also, why didn't she sabotage the base before she left? Fine, whatever. Another huge problem with this episode was Reva's plan with the tracking device, which was based on a ridiculous amount of coincidences and contrivances. Why was she wasting her time interrogating Leia at all? Reva should know that Leia isn't in collusion with the network, because Reva is the one who kidnapped Leia in the first place in order to expose Kenobi and cancel him on Twitter. You know, the more I read out this shit, the more I'm like, oh fuck, this is dumb, but this is actually happening in real time. This wasn't made up by me. Holy fuck. So she had to know that Leia was just an innocent child. As far as she knew, Kenobi was badly burned close to death, so how'd she just randomly know that he would heal up fast enough to get the whole squad together to save Leia? She was literally about to torture the girl to death. Just put the tracking device in the fucking weird-ass robot, what is it, Lola? Keep Leia locked up in a cell until Kenobi shows up, then let them get away. Reva had to know that Tala was the spy, so why didn't she just interrogate her on the location of the network? Why would she think that fucking Leia would know over an obvious rebel spy? Is Reva's mind-reading ability just a convenience for the writers to use when it suits the plot? She didn't use her mind-reading ability on Owen in episode 1, used it on the fake Jedi in episode 2, used it again on Leia in episode 3, when she knew the girl couldn't possibly know anything but didn't use it on Tala to determine if she was lying or not, and didn't matter whether or not Tala was lying about being a double agent, because if she weren't lying, that means she just told Reva the location of the Path Network's secret base, and if she were lying, and which she clearly was, then Reva knows that Tala is the enemy and part of the Path Network, and knows the location of the secret base. Either way, it's a win-win. Reva doesn't have to let them get away, since she has someone right in front of her who knew the location. Then, in another stroke of luck for Reva, those two snow speeder pilots came in to save Kenobi. Tala and Leia, when the troops were about to kill them. How could Reva possibly know this would happen? Also, if Reva's plan were to really let them get away because of the tracking device, why waste her time force-throwing that object at the one pilot to cause him to crash? Why not just let them get away too? The writers in the show really don't try, do they? The fight scenes were also terrible. Kenobi was surrounded by a fuck ton of stormtroopers, and they kept aiming at his lightsaber instead of his legs, head, or any other bodily functioning parts. And Kenobi was out of practice, having not trained in 10 years, still I don't know how that's an excuse. He should have been rusty, but took down all of them without missing a beat. But apparently he couldn't take down the fucking two guys last episode. Reva incredibly blocking those snow speeder ship cannons looked horrendous. Then there were the ridiculous amount of Leia just hiding under Kenobi's coat like some fucking trench person. No one could see that except, of course, for Reva and her massive amounts of fucking genius. Finally, why did Vader just believe Reva about the tracker? She could have been lying to save her own skin. Also, why was Vader not aware of Reva's grand plan until after they got away? When did he care more about finding some tedious path network over getting revenge on Obi-Wan? But at the end of the day, Reva even taking the time to put a tracker into Leia's toy robot makes no sense, given that she couldn't have possibly known that there was a rescue mission happening. And why the hell is Reva interrogating Leia about the whereabouts of the Jedi? Reva would know that Leia, the fucking 10-year-old, knows nothing about this. How stupid is her character? Then we get to scenes that are dumb as fuck. Like how convenient that Obi-Wan finds that interrogation room without Tala's guidance. How he turns off the lights inside the interrogation room except for that red ring in the middle. Which is a cool scene in concept, but you need to flesh that out a bit more in the writing. How he would prefer wielding a pistol, but now he's back to lightsaber against stormtroopers. And when Leia said I didn't tell them anything, I was like, yeah, no shit. You don't know anything. Tala and the third sister, one trying to outsmart the other. How Tala manages to escape the two stormtroopers by slapping one and by grabbing the helmet of the second. It reminded me a lot of the fucking Three Stooges, I don't know why. That corridor fight was terrible, especially when Obi-Wan tells Leia to hide in an open corridor. True genius he is. Also, we are now to understand that a lightsaber that in the movies superheats metal and cuts through doors now takes 4 hits to knock out a stormtrooper, when a blaster or a whack on the helmet does it in 1. Obi-Wan, mate, did you confuse your baseball bat with a fucking lightsaber? Also, have any of you guys noticed a pattern in this show? If not, let me elaborate. Episode 1, Leia gets captured. Episode 2, Leia gets rescued. Episode 3, Leia gets captured again. And Episode 4, Leia gets rescued again. This whole show is literally the most boring escort mission out of a video game I've ever seen. Say it with me. The writers really don't try, do they? It's kind of hard to be invested in a show when you know all your characters will be fine. And that's the 4th episode of me hoping that my life ends shortly. So far this was the worst one yet, and I'm going to give this one a 1.5 out of 10. I'm genuinely sad that this wasn't the final episode. Anyway, moving on to episode 5, and I usually don't comment on the cinematography in this show, because it's usually alright, but here it is fucking abysmal. The camera is constantly shaking throughout the fucking show, and it's so fucking obnoxious, Jesus, just keep it still for 5 fucking seconds. The show always looks cheaply made, with these cheap looking fucking sets, and most of the scenes in the show are desert, 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 sometimes city, desert, 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 another set piece that doesn't involve a desert. Also, somehow, not only Leia's droid had a tracker, but the Sith can now control it? When was that explained in the last episode? And why did Leia need a ladder? Couldn't Obi-Wan just force lift her to where she needed to go? And Vader does the almighty Force stuff, but can't catch anyone. I'd be embarrassed. He can only kill innocent, defenseless individuals. Also, Vader knew all along, so he just loves wasting everyone's time. Okay, so how did the Sanctuary find out? The bug droid hacking the gate, and then immediately someone runs up and is like, oh, there's an Imperial ship here. Got it. Also, how did the Grand Inquisitor survive? And same with Reva? I know people have survived before, but 2 in 6 episodes? Reva has been stabbed twice. Like, Darth, mate, if you knew Reva's plan from the beginning, then kill her. Why'd you send her on this wild goose chase? And when you did kill her, you didn't even bother finishing her off. I guess he's too good for the fucking Prince of Darkness. And that's not even getting started on the nonsensical mess that is Reva's mission. You're going to commit countless atrocities so that you can get revenge for Vader killing the Jedi. Huh? Her hatred for Kenobi is also really forced. But even then, the other Jedi and civilians she had killed had nothing to do with Vader. And what's up with the Jedi training with the actual lightsabers? And Anakin making full-strength swings like he was trying to decapitate Obi-Wan? What if Obi-Wan missed? he would have just been sliced in fucking two. Well, to be fair, they could have used Obi-Wan's fucking bat, since it takes them 4 hits to knock someone out. Haja's return was completely unwarranted and unwanted. He was even less funny and less necessary than he was in the second episode. So why the fuck is he even here? Then, Reva and Obi-Wan's little chat through the blast door was awful for so many reasons. First, we are to believe that not a single stormtrooper could overhear her talking about hunting Vader, and even just considering teaming up with Kenobi. And why is she screaming at him one moment, but then opening up to him like they're fucking best mates meeting at a bar the next scene? When the firefight starts, it takes 45 seconds of screen time before a single rebel is shot, and the first kill was at point blank range. Why are you like this? Reva's plan to have only 2 stormtroopers guard Kenobi after his surrender on the other side of the blast door was ridiculous regardless of her motivation. She either thought this was an effective method of containing her prisoner, which is Kenobi, an experienced Jedi fucking master, who's been, training all of his life, but no big deal, which is laughably incompetent, or she intentionally did this to have Obi-Wan escape, which makes her betrayal so obvious that it only, again, highlights her incompetence. Either way, it's another example of what a terribly written character Reva is. Oh, don't get me wrong, she is laughably poorly written, but then again, everyone else is in this show, so I don't fucking know. And Vader's failure to force grab the second transport ship was totally unbelievable too. Are we really expected to believe that just after seeing Vader snatch the first transport out of the air, that having the second transport just a few meters behind the first was too far for Vader to reach? I guess he has a fucking limit on what he can force pull. Also, it turns out the Grand Inquisitor isn't dead, he's alive. Wow, no one saw that one coming, eh? You definitely totally tricked me. Which, in my opinion, is worse than actually killing him. This whole fake death cliche bullshit I fucking hate. And Reva's backstory does not explain any of her behavior and her sudden change this episode. That's not how you put together a well-written character. A character on the dark side learning to come to the light side. It's the most generic arc in a Star Wars film. Well, not film, it's a show, but fuck off. You should have at least hinted at something more in the other episodes. And how does Reva know so much about Anakin? The only thing she should be aware of is that he killed a bunch of younglings, because she was part of that, but she should know nothing of what happened after that. Not about Mustafa, not about him being hacked up, nor the Emperor saving him and putting him in a big black suit. So when he's done and finished, he can go in his fucking oxygen pool, so he can go into his little septic tank. She absolutely would have no idea who Vader is, and even if someone told her, then it was never established in the script. By the way, in Reva's backstory, it is revealed that she played dead when Anakin was killing everyone. But how? How did Anakin not feel that there was a kid alive in the Force? So Reva is assumed dead, then she becomes an Inquisitor, whose true purpose was to get close enough to kill Darth Vader. We learn this because Obi-Wan somehow gets this information out of her mind. Then incredibly, he actually surrenders to her, and then somehow manages to convince her that together that they can deceive Vader, and that she can get her revenge. I suppose we were meant to ignore the trajectory both of these characters were built up on until then, so all of the character development before with Reva is fucking gone now, so that this new plot can be fucking serviced. Wow, this is really fucking dumb. While all this is going on, fucking Leia magically adds engineering to an already impossible skill set that have never been established in the script before until the plot conveniently needs it, and is trying to open the roof of the structure of the path they're all trapped in. How does she do this? We never know. Whoa, that's just bloody fucking lucky. Reva then 1v1s Vader, ready to strike him down with a lightsaber. Of course, Vader senses this and just flips around her. He's so strong that he doesn't even need a lightsaber. He eventually just gets tired of this and just splits the double-ended lightsaber into two. They fight, Vader gets the better of her, and reveals that he knew that she was a youngling all along. Wow, what a fucking twist. Who writes this? I know what I'm going to say next, I've already mentioned, but fuck is it stupid. Vader then stabs Reva in the chest with his lightsaber. We see it goes through her. At this point, the Grand Inquisitor, who was killed by Reva, magically appears next to Vader. He spews some fucking nonsense hogwash about anger being a good way to stay alive. So guys, next time you 1v1 Darth Vader and you're almost at the fucking 360 no-scope bullshit, or any other Sith, mind you, remember to just be really fucking angry, like fucking Hulk levels angry. I'm sorry, this is just so fucking dumb. I need to take some time to laugh at the fucking writers. This technique of how not to die in a lightsaber fight has never been established in the previous movies nor the future ones. I guess they got bored of cheating and would have rather chosen death instead. Now, let's talk about Vader's plan. If he knew this whole time about Reva, why exactly did he act like he didn't? What did he exactly achieve by making Reva the Grand Inquisitor and going with her idiotic plans and complimenting her when she literally did nothing? Did he catch Obi-Wan? Did he achieve what he wanted? Because it looks like the only thing different from episode 1 is that Reva is non-Inquisitor anymore, and everything is the same. Obi-Wan is on the run, and Vader doesn't know where he is, and Leia still needs to be returned to her pop-pop. Good job, Darth, you truly did accomplish whatever the fuck you wanted to accomplish. What the fuck is the point of this plot? I'm serious. What the fuck happens in this? Alright, and Vader stabbed her when she was a kid too, so stabbing her once didn't work, then don't do the same fucking thing twice, you numpty. Reva's character just doesn't work. Her entire arc was secret vengeance against Vader, except not exactly. Your plan is to kill Vader by being his friend and hunting Obi-Wan. What the fuck? That doesn't make any fucking sense. None whatsoever. So overall, I'm going to give episode 5 another 1.5 out of 10. Alright, we shall move on to the finale, which, from what people have been rating it, it must be good, right? Well, no it wasn't, it still fucking sucked, but if you like it, then more power to you. Let's begin with Reva. Or Reva. I never know how to say her name, okay? My fucking accent doesn't allow me to. Yes, I know, I said I wouldn't mention her that much, but this is the final episode and I literally did mention her a lot throughout the video, so I guess I'm a hypocrite. So, I'll be spending a lot of time on everyone's character development. Reva survives a deadly impalement and got better, fixes a ship that was ripped apart in 2 seconds flat, and then plots course to Tatooine. But she shouldn't find Luke because Baal already evacuated the losses and Luke to Alderaan. And why would Reva reveal her powers against some random in a queue for food if she was trying to stay under the radar? Also, plot hole, Reva explains to Vader she's tracking Leia's droid but doesn't think to check out Leia's home planet to find Obi-Wan or just kidnap her again. I guess that would have been too repetitive, but you know, fucking 5th time's the charm, I suppose. Also, none of her actions in the entire show makes any sense. She was killing innocent people and now all of a sudden she doesn't want to torture and murder people? You seemed pretty hell-bent on it before. What the fuck changed for you? Then there's the extended sequence of Reva attacking the Lars farm in order to kill Luke, supposedly to get revenge on Vader by killing his son. There's just one thing, just one tiny little thing. Vader doesn't even know he fucking has kids. How exactly is this going to get back at Vader killing a son he doesn't even know exists? Like, how would that conversation go? Oi, cunt Vader, I killed your son. I don't fucking have a son. Wow, genius plan there, Reva. Then while Owen wants to fucking run and hide, Beru orders him, or fucking Beru, I don't fucking know how to say his name, this is Star Wars, I don't fucking know, orders him to stay and fight. Reva and him just agrees, to this fucking dumb plan, except Owen's plan was the smart one since Reva would have no idea where they were. And how does Kenobi manage to arrive on Tatooine and on the farm so fast? He was literally fighting Vader on another planet, while Reva was attacking the farm. I couldn't care less that she had a change of heart and decided to spare Luke, because she's been one-dimensionally evil the entire show up until that point. Her change feels disingenuous because her character is so fake due to bad writing and worse acting. Her character arc is absurd. She kills Vader in the previous episode, when she should never have waited that long to begin with, since she's been close enough to him hundreds of other times. Then, through dumb writing, she finds Biles' message and then goes to kill Luke on Tatooine. Why doesn't Reva just follow through with her original plan and try to kill Vader? She's got the element of surprise now, because Vader and the Grand Inquisitor both think she died in the Rebel planet the prior episode. Why did she think that killing a kid that Vader doesn't even know exists is a better revenge than just killing Vader himself? That's like if someone murdered your family, but as punishment you ban them from using your fucking Xbox for the rest of their lives. Then comes Obi-Wan, who hasn't had a proper lightsaber fight in 10 years, just taps into the Force and then defeats Vader like it was nothing. And Vader magically forgets that he is the most experienced lightsaber user in the galaxy, and has the Force, and if he wants, he can just crush Kenobi, just like Obi-Wan can also escape because the Star Destroyer magically disappeared and has no tractor beam or TIE fighters on board. There's also so many fucking cuts and too much fucking shaky cam. Are you trying to make me throw up? Obi-Wan also miraculously gets his strength back with no explanation whatsoever. Obi-Wan also lets Vader live, not learning from his mistakes the first time he did this shit. It's just as you would expect. The one thing that I did like, however, from this episode is Obi-Wan and Darth's conversation. It feels long overdue, and it's the best line of dialogue in the entire show. And it's the only reason I decide to keep watching, because that line of dialogue is just great. It's perfect. It's a bittersweet conclusion to both of their long as fuck arcs. And that's the only thing I liked this episode. It's just a big grand finale that feels unearned. The music is fucking meh. Then there's dark shots that you can't see shit with fan service moments and dialogues that make you go, hey, that Luke said that. Or, oh my fucking god, it's fucking Qui-Gon Jinn. And, oh fuck, he said the hello there meme. Fuck. Also, when Luke is running away from Reva with the lightsaber, he has no fucking memory of that event in A New Hope. Also, why was this episode so fucking dark? Never mind that. Why is the series so fucking dark? Can someone explain that? I literally couldn't see anything in the nighttime scenes on Tatooine. It's like the director was trying to hide the cheapness through darkness. I mean, I've been complaining about this the whole video, but really? Fucking hell, it just pissed me off for the last time. And, by the way, any scene set at night, good luck actually trying to see that shit, because Disney fucking hates you. The refugees we have little to no connection to, and Obi-Wan summing up their character arcs, show just how little we actually examined these other characters. The only point of interest is Leia, which is significantly hampered by the fact that Obi-Wan and Leia never met before, according to A New Hope. Even so, Leia might as well be described as an annoying little cunt, because that's what she is. And why would Kenobi abandon guardianship of Luke? The laws didn't beat Reva, Reva beat herself. They are clearly very susceptible to threats like Tusken raids, and the Inquisitors still exist. They hunt Force-sensitive children, so I'd like to remind you that in the original trilogy and Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan believes that this child is literally the Messiah. That's why he's on Tatooine. But here, Obi-Wan is like, fuck it, I'm sure the little shit will live. Sidious's being used to suggest Vader didn't beat Obi-Wan because Vader had feelings for his master is such a pathetic attempt to explain how Vader was beaten again, when at this point he's become virtually unstoppable. Kenobi only being him on Mustafar because Anakin did a reckless, overconfident move is fucking ridiculous. Also, don't the writers know that the Sith thrive off hate? Vader isn't conflicted or compromised because of Obi-Wan. That makes him only a better tool about Recon, whatever the fuck his name is. Why are we spending so much time with this guy, and why do we care if he's going to be a good leader or not? And how can a Star Destroyer not be able to destroy a little passenger ship? Why is it called a Star Destroyer if its fucking ammunition don't even do any real damage to a basic ship? That's like calling it XX Death Marine and then it doesn't do fucking shit. It's like shoots out fucking BB guns and Nerf bullets. And it's shown that they actually hit the ship multiple times throughout the first sequence. But the ship is shown that it's intact, and everyone's safe in the end, wahoo. We also have Owen not shooting Reva when he has a clear shot for some reason, and he and his wife continues to miss every shot. I almost forgot to mention that Obi-Wan somehow escaped that planet without being seen by the Star Destroyer, because the plot demands it. Even if they did get fucking seen, it doesn't fucking matter, the Star Destroyer's fucking useless, mate. Overall, it somehow seemed rushed even though there's no plot. Only like 2 things happen in this episode: Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader, and Reva wanting to kill Luke for some reason and then finding her second wind. I don't even know how it took 45 minutes for just these 2 simple plot lines. But anyway, I came into Obi-Wan with somewhat high hope, since I heard a lot of people were saying it's good. But no, this show was just a lazy attempt to try and make some money from Star Wars fans. I guess it was pretty fun watching all the Star Wars movies for the first time to see if Obi-Wan was consistent with them. Surprise, surprise, Obi-Wan had dog shit writing in it. Inconsistency in the writing. I should also mention this, since apparently some really dumb cunts online have been saying some shit about Reva's actor, and I thought I might as well briefly mention that. So Moses, the woman who plays Reva, has been getting a lot of hate online because she plays a poorly written character. And while I personally dislike Reva's character, that does not mean the hate to the actor is justified. That shit is not okay, and I won't stand for it at all. And if people hate the fucking actor and send death threats to her, I fucking know who you are, and I know who's been incentivizing it. I don't even know why I said that. And you're a fucking piece of shit if you do that. Okay, speech over. Overall, Obi-Wan is a show that had a good premise, but due to bad writers, bad direction, and just bad everything overall, it couldn't really pull its weight, I suppose, or didn't have the fucking feet to stand up, or the strength. I don't know what I'm trying to say. So without further notice, I'm going to give Obi-Wan Kenobi a 2 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like the video to show your support, and subscribe if you're new around here. Sorry if this video took so long to put out, as you can see by the length. I had a lot of thoughts on my mind about the show that needed to be expressed, and I've had a lot of shit to do. There's a lot of reviews that I need to make, and I'm trying to get through them as quickly as I can, but I can't rush, content, so I'm trying to go as fast as I can, but also trying to make it well thought out at the same time. Also, I don't have to shout out Rio anymore. The bet's over. Hallelujah. Anyway, I'll see you guys until my next video, which will be about the new Stranger Things season and my thoughts on it. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!